NWP Radio.
You're listening to NWP Radio, a production of the National Writing Project.
NWP. NWP Radio.
Hello, and welcome to this special broadcast of NWP Radio for Write Out 2021. I'm Christina Cantrell from the National Writing Project, and I'm coming to you from Philadelphia. As we are writing out together, I wanted to recognize the original inhabitants of the land that I'm on, which is originally known as Lenape-Hoking. This is the traditional homelands of the Lenni Lenape people, who I just learned at this weekend while I was at a write out event with the Philadelphia Writing Project. They are still fighting to be recognized in the state of Pennsylvania. So I wanted to acknowledge that. Write Out is a 2-week free event hosted by the National Writing Project and the National Park Service. We're in the middle of it right now, and it goes through this Sunday. So we are excited that you're here to join us, and we encourage you to get involved however you can, however you want to this coming week. Tomorrow is the National Day on Writing, so we're happy to come together and celebrate place and community at this moment that we're bringing national attention to writing and creating. So today's broadcast, and I would say this year's Write Out event overall, is made that much more special this year by the participation of leaders of Outdoor Afro. And so this includes Chaya Harris here, Leandra Taylor, Chaya Harris, and they'll all introduce themselves and also tell us more about their network in a moment. This broadcast is also being co-led by Park Ranger Alana Smith. She's from the Golden Gate National Recreation Center in San Francisco. So thanks everyone here for making and taking the time to spend with us and to join us this evening. Alana, maybe you can get us started, just, who you are, where you are, and maybe something you've done or inspired to do around Write Out this year.
Absolutely. Thanks, Christina. Thanks for having me. Hey, everyone. My name is Alana Smith. I am the Presidio Education Program Manager here at Golden Gate National Recreation Area in San Francisco. I am on the ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone. As far as something that I've done so far for Write Out, I was really excited a few days ago to respond to the prompt by Amy Herzl, and it was about contrasting worlds, looking at the intersection between it was human and natural features through poetry. So really enjoyed that. And I'll pass it on to Rich.
Thanks, Alana. Rich Novak here. I am here in Connecticut, where I'm a high school English teacher. Connecticut, specifically where I live and teach, is the ancestral homeland of the Golden Hill Peguasit tribe, who I just did a land acknowledgement with this weekend, as a matter of fact. And in terms of Write Out, I've been working with the Write Out folks since its inception. This year, I helped lead with the help of Brian Crandall of the Connecticut Writing Project in Fairfield and Kristen Lassard, the park ranger. At Weir Farm, we led a workshop with teachers where we were outdoors just this past weekend in this beautiful fall weather. And Alana, another thing I did, I forgot to mention this, I also showed your video to my 10th graders as we were beginning our story mapping. So thank you for inspiring them. And I'm going to pass it over to Dominique.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here tonight. My name is Dominique Herard. I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and work in Brookline. I'm not too far away. Both are the ancestral home of the Pawtucket and Massachusetts tribes. And my first graders are currently working on some land acknowledgements for our school community. So that's really exciting. I haven't tried anything yet this week, but what I'm hoping to try with my students is a prompt about inventions and thinking about inventions that really have shaped our world. And we're going to be thinking about technology, how technology is something that can help solve a problem, help make our world better. And when we begin that conversation, we'll hopefully take this idea of inventions outside into a garden that's in our school. And I will pass it over to Maya.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maya Mackie. I work with the National Park Service on the West Coast, so San Francisco, California. I have not done a lot of Write Out activities right now, but I'm very inspired to go outside and just sit on my patio and journal whatever I feel is necessary at that time. And I'll pass it to Chaya.
Thanks, Maya. So my name rhymes. I'm Chaya Harris. I'm the National Program Director with Outdoor Afro, and I am calling in from Boston or Wampanoag Ancestral Lands. And this weekend, I was able to host a nature journaling session with folks here in Boston, and we pondered what makes us feel connected to a space. It was really delightful, really refreshing to hear some of our stories, and I look forward to adding to my notebook this evening with Leandra and the crew. So I will pass to Benny.
Hello, everyone. My name is Benny Badum, and I want to recognize that we're on the ancestral homeland of the Ramatosh Ohlone, and they are still here. Their descendants are still here. And I work on Alcatraz Island, and I work with students, both middle and high school students. And we work a lot with inquiry along with a team, Alanna, with Alanna and other team members. And I'm looking forward to working with students and seeing the island through their eyes. I'm always inspired how they see the island and how they use observation and inference. And also with this program, we're looking at how what artifact represents them, what that they have that represents them. And that's a question that we're going to pose with the students. And I did it the last time, my last program, because since we're doing virtual, and I'm excited that we're having our first real life program in November since COVID. It's been 2 years since we've had students on the island, so I'm really excited about that. And I'm going to pass it over to let's see, Tasha.
Hello. So, start video. My name is Tasha Harris. I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I'm also a forest therapy guide. A lot of being in nature is definitely trying to get some memory of either having a disconnection from it and or a written record of it. So I'm all about using any medium in hand to help facilitate that. So this fall, especially with so much richness in New England, I'm in Boston with Chaya and the others. It's kind of cool to think about nature journaling, both with my kindergarten class and with adults. We put assumptions that, kids are the ones who need to learn everything, but adults, we sometimes forget the richness that exploring nature can bring. So I think nature journaling is an excellent accessory to that process. I look forward to learning some tips.
I'm just going to jump in. Hi, everyone. My name is Leandra Taylor. I am calling in from Asheville, North Carolina, which is the land of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians. I'm so excited to be here today. And my write out activity that I aspire to do this week is to go outside and make a zine. I saw that earlier and it looks really fun and creative. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And as everyone mentioned, I'm here as an Outdoor Afro leader. This year is my 5th year as an Outdoor Afro leader, and it's just been such a transformative space in my life. And Outdoor Afro is a national nonprofit that celebrates and inspires Black connections and leadership in nature. And this has just been a space that I feel like I have grown in so much, and I'm really excited to be here to share more about nature journaling, what it entails, and who all should be doing it, right? So with that, I think I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen. It's a lot of pressure when you share your screen. You're like, how many tabs are open? Okay, I think we got it. And then we're going to go from slide 1. Don't peek at my slides. So like I said, this session is going to be about nature journaling. So a little bit about me. My name is Leandra. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an artist, an environmental scientist, a storyteller. I love telling stories and looking for new stories to tell. I'm a mountaineer. I had the pleasure and honor of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro with some of my other volunteer Outdoor Afro leaders, including Chaya Harris here. And that for me was just a pivotal moment in my life and really helped me realize, honestly, how much of art played into that and how I want to keep incorporating it. I also identify as an educator. I love doing environmental education, doing outreach with people and families and friends and all those things. So constantly in a space of learning and creating and educating. And like I said, this is my 5th year as an Outdoor Afro leader. So what is nature journaling? Nature journaling is, a nature journal is a space to keep all of your observations, your thoughts, your questions about nature, in nature, and with nature. In full disclosure, this is something that I discovered maybe a year or 2 ago. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert or I've been doing it for a really long time. It's just something that I love to do and I've been learning to do it. And I'm excited to share that learning process with you guys. And so one of my favorite things about nature journaling is I just really feel like it's a chance to explore and to seek out moments of discovery in nature, while also kind of keeping a daily log. You know, it turns into a journal of what you've been doing. You can keep tickets, you can keep artifacts and little, you know, snippets of your day in there to really, I don't know, remember and learn. So when I think about who should be nature journaling, I think it is a tool for discovery. So it makes me think of scientists. And as a scientist, I believe everyone is a scientist. We're always learning. We're always making discoveries. We're always making observations, whether or not we stay in science, we are in science. And in terms of art, I feel like you can be as artsy as you want to with your nature journal, but it can also just be a space that you write. Maybe it's all words, maybe it's all pictures. It could be things that you found and taped in. It actually doesn't have to have any words or things in there like that. So no pressure to feel like you have to have this official nature journal bound from back and front and like official way to use it. This is your tool for observation and discovery in nature. And this is your time to define what it is that you want to discover. So with that being said, let's make a nature journal. So I'm excited about this. I grabbed some stuff from around the house. I'm going to show you what I grabbed and feel free to add to it or, you know, maybe not. So first things first, you're going to need paper, something to write with. So I chose printer paper because I have this around the house. I also have graph paper because I like that it has the boxes and it can create, you know, different types of observations. You can use printer paper, watercolor paper. I actually like to be greedy and mix it all up. So that way, when I feel like using watercolor, I can. And when I feel like using graph paper, I can. And then you can kind of bind it up how you want and staple it. So after you've got your paper, I'm going to show you what we're doing with the paper first, and then I'll continue on our list. So very simple. I think we've all made the like fold in half book, right? So you can do hamburger or hot dog, choose your style. It's up to you, your choice, user's choice. Oh, I also want to mention that you can use a pre-made journal. So I have this one. I bought this one. It came in a pack of 3. And I've been using this one for the past couple of weeks and making observations. But today I'm going to take some time and create one alongside you guys. But I definitely encourage you, if you find a cute journal and you want to make that your journal, do that too. For today, we'll be making them. So after your paper is folded in half, if you're feeling fancy, you can staple it. If you're feeling extra fancy, you can hole punch it and tie some string in there, or you can just leave it folded. And so what else we'll need for this is a writing utensil. So pencil or pen. Definitely you can get creative and put some colored pencils, watercolor, any sort of thing that you want to write or document with. So as long as we've got those things, we're actually ready to nature journal right now. Bonus items, if you're feeling like, you know, you're going out to do a specific type of observations. Sometimes I bring my binoculars with me. I am an avid bird watcher and I love to just, you know, kind of stalk the birds, right? So that's one of my scientific tools. I also have my Sibley bird guide that I bring with me. This is another science tool that you can use to help you define what it is that you're looking at in your nature journal. And then I also have 2 books that I picked up that have been helping me learn. So this one is Peggy Dean's Guide to Nature Drawing and Watercolor. And I'll be sure to send these over so you guys have the names of these as well. And then also the Law's Guide to Nature Journaling, to Nature Drawing and Journaling. So I think these are both have a good, introduction, but also show you different techniques that you can be using. So now that we've got our tools, we're gonna fold our paper in half and spend some time decorating. You guys mind if I put on like a little bit of music while we get creative? And so I've been feeling inspired to, have some nature sounds, nature music. So I looked for songs that have that feel. Hold on. Now I'm scared to share again. Hold on, stop sharing. So I'm gonna grab our music. You guys grab your supplies. Don't be shy, get started. And I will get our first song. And I gotta share my audio in a specific way, I think. There we go. Okay. Okay, let me know if this works. Turn it down. Are we hearing it? Yay! Okay, so we're gonna take this time right now and we're just gonna decorate our journal. So I'm thinking I'm gonna put my name, I'll put the date, maybe draw some flowers. So we're just gonna spend a couple minutes on this, decorating. Feel free to boogie. All right, how are we doing on time? Do we need a couple more minutes? Are we feeling good? Thumbs up if you're ready to make some observations.
I still have to perfect my masterpiece, but that's good.
Listen, so I was just sitting here thinking, I'm doing something right if you want to come back later. So I hope you started something that you want to come back to later, because this is your new project. Does anybody want to share what they decided to draw or to put on their cover? I'll go first because I feel like I, just feel really exposed. But this is my journal, Lee's journal of the day. I got fancy and put stickers on mine. So yeah, I'm going to, once we flip to the next page and we start the next page, I'll show you how we're going to make our observations. But if anyone else wants to share, I'd love to see them. Yes.
I'd love to share mine. I don't know if you could see it. I just give a border at the top of mine, and I'm just excited to be here journaling with you all. And I just, it's windy a little bit, it's that fall windiness. So I'm trying to have these trees have some wind to it.
I'm
and then
seeing it.
In the distance here, way in the back, there's this mountain, and I'm hearkening that Kilimanjaro hike. I got to be honest with you. I was watching you on Facebook, and you're like celebrities to me right now. First of all, for going up there at all, right? But summoning it the way you did. So that's me just standing way in the background admiring.
Oh, thank you, Rich. That's so cool. Listen, the leaves blowing off the tree is a nice touch. Like, I really see what you did there. And yeah, I hope that one day you feel inspired to climb Mount Kilimanjaro also. I feel like my biggest lesson, if I had to share my takeaway, was that the summit is not always the top. So and whatever that means, like we reached the literal summit, but I feel like some of us summited before that. And that is, so thank you for sharing, Rich. I really love your cover. So I'm going to get back to my presentation, and then we'll kind of make some quick notes. Okay, I'm on advanced sharing, and now okay, screen. Are we back to the presentation? Yeah. Well, I was really nervous it wasn't going to go there. From my current slide. So now that we've got our nature journals, I want to talk a little bit about making observations. I've done nature journaling with groups of kids and adults, and it's really entertaining with both groups. And so one of my first ways that I like to get people warmed up is to use our senses. And so, you know, if we're actually outside, we can go find a spot. If we're on a hike, we can find somewhere that we can sit and be quiet. And I like to take participants, whether they are students or adults, through our senses. So the first one being, you know, what do we hear? If we sit really still and we're quiet and we use our closed mouths, and you can usually hear the birds, the wind, nothing. Maybe you hear airplanes and you can make observations around, is it more natural sounds or is it human sounds that we're hearing? And why do you think we're hearing more human sounds? And then you go down all those rabbit holes, right? And then you have them open or close their eyes now. So I just did the hearing. Vision, what are you seeing? I feel like I'm missing me. Okay, so when you do hearing, you close your eyes. That's what it is. And then you open your eyes and you do seeing. And then as we're talking about using touch and other things, I really like to remind students and participants of the leave no trace principles. And, you know, just being mindful of like not ripping leaves off the trees, try to use things that are already on the ground and leave them there for later because nature needs all of its pieces. So, you know, we're one of my main reasons that I use nature journaling is because you don't have to take the item. You can sit and you can draw a leaf and you can make it as detailed as possible. I'm going to use my example notebook. I actually had on a field trip, some students asked me, what is that plant? And I didn't know it at the time. One of my favorite in-field tools is the Seek app, and you can take pictures of things and it identifies the plant or animal that you're looking at. And I like to use that, but if you're somewhere that doesn't have signal or technology, it's really fun to challenge yourself to draw that thing and make as many observations as you can so you can try to figure out what it is later. So some of the things that I realized about this leaf is that it had 5 leaves. It looked like poison ivy. We were wondering if it was. So I, of course, told the students we're not going to be touching it. And then after I made all these observations, I went home and learned that it is a Virginia creeper, which is similar in appearance to poison ivy. And so it became this really cool learning moment for me. My students were teaching me these plants. I'm new to the East Coast, so I was really trying to make sure I know what I'm talking about, right? And so, yeah, those are ways that you can use your senses and really get, I don't know, the creative juices flowing, right? Another great exercise that I saw in one of the books is that you can make themed observations. So you can say, I want to go out into nature today and find as many yellow things as I can, or as many orange things, or things that are round. It doesn't have to be a color. It can just be a category. It can be different ways that you want to challenge yourself or your students to make observations. And as you're making them, I challenge you to do things that feel natural and unnatural. So if you naturally want to write your observations, write them all out and then do a quick sketch and challenge yourself and really push yourself to not be too perfect. I know sometimes we really get on the I'm not an artist thing, but it's for you and it's for your learning. So as long as you know what it is, you're doing the right thing. So I think that's everything I wanted to touch on for making observations. And I had some sample photos since we don't have the pleasure of being in person. I have some of my favorite photos that I've been collecting over the past couple months, and I wanted to take some time to just make some quick observations. So when I start my nature journaling pages, the only thing that I really like to keep consistent for myself is I like to write down the date, the place, and the time and the weather. And that's because I'm a nature nerd and I want to know all the factors that went into that day. Was it cloudy? Was it sunny? How does that impact the vegetation? I like to know what day I went out and saw those things. So when I come back later, I can say it's a seasonal change, or I can note whatever it was in the environment that made that thing different. So I have some of my favorite pictures here, and I thought we could just take a quick practice run of looking at some of these nature goodies that I found. And I'm open to doing these together, or we can kind of take a couple minutes in our journal and maybe pick a photo that you feel inspired by, and we can share what we observed.
I was just noting down in my journal the date and time because I think that's a lovely idea. So
yeah, I think it creates a level of consistency too for students to.
Yeah. And you said the weather too, right?
I put yes, the date, the time, the weather. Make sure those are all right, and the location, so you know where you are.
And I bet you that's what's cool about that too, is like, if you go back to, if you do this a couple times, having that little bit like weather,
Right.
you could remember like, oh yeah, that was that day, you know, like that was,
Right.
he when I take students outside, sometimes like that was the day he took us out there. That was,
Yeah.
I can't believe he took us out there that time.
For sure. And I also love that when you come back day after day. So this is one of my journals that I did of a pokeberry. And I made some observations about it. And somebody had one of my neighbors cut down one of their bushes. So I took a piece off of it and I watched it decay and age. So it's much less vibrant than it was when I drew it. And I know because I noted the color of the vines, the color of the berries, and then I can start making observations about like, how do these age and what are the factors that went into it? So don't let me nerd out, but yes, those are ways that you make observations. And yeah, so I have a couple pictures here, and let's just run through them together and I'll just share what it is that caught my eye. So in the top right, this is an orb spider. I found this monarch butterfly caterpillar a few days prior, and I found it in its chrysalis near this spider later. So I was taking a picture of it and I backed away and didn't realize that there was an orb spider next to me. But I love that it has this really interesting zipper web. This was how I identified it. And I only know these spiders from a couple nature shows. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's got to be an orb spider because of the zipper. And when I went home and looked it up, I was correct. So I thought that was really cool. It's always cool when you find in-field moments to apply things that you didn't know you knew, right? So this one right here, this is some sort of pea plant that I found on an Outdoor Afro nature journaling event. I had a participant that came back that was a forager. And so she was sharing that she had noticed the seed pods here. She made observations about how the leaves were growing and it had all these different flowers growing from the same plant that were different colors. It was such a beautiful plant that I'd never noticed. And I've been on this path multiple times. And that's what I love about nature journaling, is that it makes you slow down and look at the smaller details. So I also, on a different field trip, found a cute little caterpillar. I think it's also worth noting this leaf is an arrow shape. Like those types of things, it's just cool to know. It's just cool to note it. I think this is a turkey tail fungus.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
In the summer. Yep.
Yeah, so I saw this. A lot of these were just on my neighborhood walks. That's when I get my daily dose of nature, is to just take a quick break during work and make some observations about things that I'm seeing around me. And this one, I haven't figured out what it is. I just saw it the other day this weekend. And so I'm going to figure out what it is. I'm going to assume it's some sort of lantern because it looks like one. And usually nature names are named after what they look like. And so, yeah, these are some photos that I thought would be a great way to just kind of practice making general observations about color, but also the place and maybe environmental factors that you think are relevant. But also just leaving it open up for people to take note of what they want. Maybe they just want to write a poem about a mushroom and that's how they remembered it. So I try not to put too many limitations on what observations can be, because it's your observation to make.
That arrow in the leaf is just like amazing. That's the kind of thing that like captures a kid's imagination. Like what are the odds that a leaf looks so much like an arrow, or like it's like an emoji?
Yes. And so a fun fact about this hike, I had taken out a group of students and it was kind of rainy that day. So, you know, they're kind of like, what? And then we see this caterpillar and it just changes the whole day, because now there's a group of us just looking at this little inky, and then we want to save it off the trail. So one of the students ended up relocating it so it didn't get smashed, and it turned into a mushroom hunt, a caterpillar hunt. Like it just turned into such a fun hike from this one little caterpillar on this cute little leaf. So and by the end of it, I had one girl that said, this was my favorite part of the whole day that we went on a hike. So I took that as a win, because she didn't really want to go when we started.
As a park ranger, I know how big that is, Leandra. So it's really cool when you can turn that around. That's
absolutely
awesome. That's
she came up to me afterwards and she's like, I found my new bestie. And I was like, what?
Anyway. You know what's cool about using that caterpillar example, that they're all about the metamorphosis, right? So you have children whose mood was changed by something that changes drastically. I love it.
I just got chills when you said that. I hadn't even thought about that. But that transformation, right? Like over one hike, it turned into this place of discovery, and we were just all being scientists. And it was really cool to see them, you know, excited to write about it, excited to find the next one. Miss Leandra, use your Seek app and figure out what this one is. So it turned into a really cool day.
Love it.
And this is that same day. So in the top left, these are some of those students that were finding every single mushroom they could find because we wanted to figure out what they were. And we talked about leave no trace. So we talked about like, how do you interact with things without making an impact on them or damaging them? The bottom left is a different field trip of nature journals, but these young ladies were just making observations about the landscape we were on. And this student right here actually used a technique to, she traced around the leaf after putting it under the page and also pressed it and like drew on it with a crayon, which I hadn't thought of. And that's actually like my technique now for doing leaves, is that I put them under the page and color on it. And I told her I would always give her credit for that method because it was so cool to watch her do it and discover that method for herself. And these pictures here on the right are of a recent Outdoor Afro event that I did. And I wasn't sure how this was going to work with adults. Like if I didn't have to walk everyone through the activities, how would it function? And I did a basic intro and then just said, let's make observations. And it turned into this really fun day of everyone kind of meeting and connecting and making new friends. And we talked about doing weekly nature journaling events after this. And it was just really cool to kind of watch people bond. And I don't think I've ever had an event that I was like, I have to stop this or we'll be here all day. So eventually I had to step in and say like, hey, we're at our 2-hour mark. So yeah, when you're in the field with groups, I like to keep everyone together, especially kids, but also kind of create that space for observations. I like to give boundaries, you know, don't go past that tree and past this thing, but feel free to explore in between. And of course, with adults, you can use your discretion as needed. And then I have a couple of resources that I use for nature journaling. The North American Association for Environmental Education has a really great page about nature journaling and lots of different links to resources. So I can make sure to send that link out as well. And then the other website that goes along with this book that I used about nature journaling is another really great resource. And there's an entire network and conference around nature journaling. So I really encourage everyone to dig in and enjoy, explore. And with that, with our quick introduction to nature journaling, thank you guys for sticking with me through this. Making nature journals. I'm so excited to continue to use them later. And I'm even more excited to hear, oh my gosh, Christina, that was fantastic.
I did the hot dog fold just to challenge myself.
Yeah, I like it. It looks so good. And I'm even more excited right now to hear from Alana how she incorporates history and the landscape in her nature journaling. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leandra. It's really exciting to be able to craft a nature journal. And, you know, I was always that kid who never knew when the art project was done. So
yeah, right.
I'm gonna keep adding stuff and adding stuff.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that. And, you know, you really hit on it with how important it is in nature journaling to, you know, it helps us to slow down, really notice those details and really appreciate those little things. And so now we're going to move into kind of noticing our surroundings, connecting with our surroundings in a slightly different way through space and time. And that's with historically inspired journaling. And so I'm going to share a few examples that come from my park. And we're going to kind of see what comes up. So as I mentioned before, I am based here in the Presidio of San Francisco. And it is such a full and rich place to be learning about history and to be teaching about history. And we do place-based programs. So we really look at the stories of people who have come before us, and we tie those stories to specific sites within the park. And so I'm going to start by showing some photos. All right. Let's see. Probably seeing my really busy desktop. All right. All right, so one of the stories that we tell at my park is of the Buffalo Soldiers. So the Buffalo Soldiers were Black Americans who served in the military, and they were based here in the Presidio. They lived and worked in the Presidio, and they were also among the very first park rangers. So there's a lot of reasons to be interested in this story and excited. And so here I'm showing a photo of the Presidio Stables. So that's one of the places that we use in the park that's connected to the Buffalo Soldiers. And also here to the right, we have a historical photo from 1914 of a Buffalo soldier on his horse. And so another site that we talk about related to the Buffalo Soldiers is the cemetery. And so this is the San Francisco National Cemetery, and there's over 400 Buffalo Soldiers that are buried here. And so in this photo, we can see, rows of white tombstones. In the background, we have trees and the bay and the Golden Gate Bridge. And so these two places, the stables and the cemetery, are both places where you can really feel connected to the story of the Buffalo Soldiers. And, we do programs out at these two locations. One time I did a program here at outside the stables, and I set up easels and I put up, photographs and quotations, and had folks really reflecting on the experiences of the Buffalo Soldiers. And so writing can really come from a lot of different places, a lot of different inspirations when we're talking about history. Folks can respond to how they feel being in these sites while learning about the experiences of the Buffalo Soldiers. And we also always pair being in these sites with different primary sources. So we use photographs, we use letters, we use newspaper articles. And so folks can also respond to some of the struggles that the Buffalo Soldiers were going through, some of the dilemmas that were coming up. And so that can be a powerful way to connect. The Buffalo Soldiers have really inspired all kinds of different art forms, paintings and poetry, books, films, and songs, of course. And so it's there's really a lot to kind of dive into with writing using different figures like this as inspiration. All right. And so I also want to share kind of another site real quick. And also before earlier, I wanted to mention, so Benny was talking about some inference, and that's something we're really big into inquiry and making inferences. So we always love encouraging folks to look around and see what little things they notice. And, we don't just tell people the answers or tell people what we want them to think, but it's about kind of observing and really figuring out what little detail do you notice in this photograph. And that's something that we do with all ages. It's great for, young children to jump into some of this history by using, a photograph that's tied to this site that they're in. And that kind of helps them to really connect with the material. So the next place that I want to share with everyone, I'm not going to really give a whole lot of context to start with, because when I first saw this place, I didn't really know anything about it. And my imagination kind of ran wild and was just firing off with curiosity, trying to figure out what was this place and really putting it together. So I'm going to kind of let you look at it, see what you notice, and I'll just kind of describe the photos that I'm sharing. All right, so we are at a place in the park, and it's a cliff top that is overlooking the ocean, and it's overlooking the city of San Francisco. So here I have 3 photos right at the entrance of this site. There are 2 statues, these old weathered statues of lions that are kind of guarding the entrance. And there's this path that unfurls in front of you with all these palm trees and different types of trees lining the entrance. And as you walk forward a little bit, you notice a lot of statues. There are some statues, most of them are crumbling, and there's roses, kind of remnants of rose gardens throughout this place. There's also a large bird bath, and there's 2 ravens kind of sitting in it right there. And then as you keep walking around, you look over and you see kind of what almost looks like a castle-like structure. It's got these terraces, There is a bunch of plants that are growing, coming up out of those terraces, a little stone path. And I'll say this picture and the next picture are what inspired me for to write a poem. And that was from that prompt that I was speaking of at the beginning, the contrasting worlds, just kind of looking at how nature and kind of human features, human artifacts interact. So this tree here, this Monterey cypress, is growing at the top of kind of that castle foundation that we just saw. And so it's kind of neat to see. I always love watching, seeing like old ruins and sites where nature kind of comes back and you can see them intertwined together. So that's a cool thing that you can put down in your journals.
Was it particularly foggy this day? I feel like I'm getting a lot of fog.
So that's funny you asked that. So these pictures were not all taken on the same day, because you never know what you're going to get with San Francisco. It's Absolutely. Like, one day will be gorgeous and pretty, and the next day you can't even take pictures because there's too much fog. So this was when the fog was just starting to roll in, so you can kind of see it coming through, but it's amazing how fast it changes. So that is a good question. I was like, I wonder if people are going to notice these are like totally different looking days. So yes, so this is up at the top. And then if you kind of look over the edge off to one of the sides, you look down and you see what looks like a pool. And these are kind of at the base of the cliffs right by the ocean. And there's some like concrete structures that are rimming this. And here's another view of that. So you can really see the cliffs and parts of that pool and some more of those ruins. So I'm gonna, share what these places are. So this area with a large pool, this is what we call Sutro Baths. The ruins of Sutro Baths, this is what it used to look like. So it was a massive bathing complex with a bunch of different pools. They had freshwater pools, saltwater pools, trapezes and water slides and all kinds of things in this building. And so it was a site of, leisure and enjoyment for people. But it was also a site that represented struggle, because this was a place where there was a really early civil rights case where John Harris was a Black man who sued for discrimination in the late 1800s in San Francisco, which is one of the earlier civil rights cases that I've ever heard of. So you can, look at the surroundings and what it looks like now, and then you can kind of reflect on, what did this site represent? What kind of meaning is tied to this site? And then those earlier photos, I always love looking at the old historical photos and then the current photos. And I love your face, Leandra. That's like totally my face too. And, just seeing, this is from the late 1800s. And just seeing what elements of a landscape survived, what it looks like today compared to what it looked like then. So, I didn't want to put like 50 photos in here, but there's a lot of really cool stuff. So I encourage you to look it up. So this is from the Sutro Heights Park. And it was a park that was open to the public. And this is also where Adolf Sutro built his home. And so there's all kinds of history and things you can look up to hear more about that. But I really enjoy this whole area, this whole site, just because of that first time when I looked and I was like, whoa, these lions and all these statues, these roses, it was just so magical. And so I will, leave y'all with a few prompts to kind of think about for when you want to do some historical journaling. And, I'll say that it's a lot like exactly what Leandra was talking about with the nature journaling, where you're looking at those little details, you're looking at architectural features, historical landscapes. So like how people have crafted landscapes, where they decided to put what type of trees, all those decisions really tell us about the lives of people that have come before us. And it's a lot that we can reflect on in that interface between, nature and human ruins, human buildings. There's a lot to be inspired by there. So I'm going to share these prompts that I put together. So describe a time you felt deeply connected to history through a place. So that's how I felt visiting, Sutro Heights, the Sutro Baths area. And the second one, imagine a scene from the past using a historical landscape as your setting or inspiration. So, it could be just a piece of a place that you're in. It could be a building. It could be a brick. It could be a little flourish on, above a door. It could be anything that can inspire you to think about, some kind of greater scene. And then respond to a historical event by writing a letter or a poem. And this is something that we use for programs with Buffalo Soldiers, particularly one of my coworkers, Ranger Hector, has students write letters to a Buffalo soldier. You can also respond by poetry, and I've never considered myself a poet, so nobody's more surprised than me that I wrote out a poem inspired by this site. Because I'm not really into like structure and order. I was like, what's that? I was Googling what is a, I don't even know what the word is. Verses, stanzas, you know what I'm talking about. So, but I just threw it together and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're just being creative and you're having fun. Yeah. And I think that's kind of about it. And I really would love to hear how folks think they might use history as inspirations for their journaling, or if you want to share anything about what you'd like to use for your journaling. I don't know who I'm turning it over to next, but thanks for listening.
I can share that I just really loved the way that you presented the different images that could help trigger our imaginations about what that could have possibly been. I was thinking like, oh, those look like the lions in front of the New York Public Library. So I wonder if like that's like a special, it almost felt like an exclusive place that wouldn't allow people in. So I felt like my mind was going in all these places. So I loved the idea of that activity, not only for the writing that happens with educators that I definitely do, but also just with younger people, just kind of unlocking a mystery, inquiry-based, and just really being able to inspire different kinds of writing and connection that way. So it just made me feel really inspired to be able to try something similar in the history that is so prevalent in the area where I live. And also just thinking about the ways that that type of prompt can really bring people together and into the writing process. So I just really appreciate that so much.
Nice. Thank you, Dominique. I appreciate you. So it's great to hear that. And I hope you do get out there and try that out. And, I actually haven't brought a group of students or youth out to that area. And I've been really wanting to, of course, it hasn't been possible lately, but it will be cool to see kind of how their imagination goes off and what they think used to be here. So yeah, thanks.
And I've been to San Francisco several times, so I'm hoping to try to see that next time I go. So I wrote everything down.
Yeah, it's kind of hidden. It's like way on the edge of the city. So yeah, it'd be cool I gotta seek it out.
Thank you, Alana. I'm excited. I want to write a short story inspired by a historical landscape. I think connecting to history in that way would be really interesting. I love that you showed us those photos, even the backside of the castle with the flat. Like my imagination was like, oh, this is a fairy landscape. But then also being able to look it up and learn what it really is and what the true meaning of it is. That was really cool. So I'm excited to explore more of that.
I was connecting between the nature journaling and what Alana was sharing in that one picture where all the plants were growing on the, sort of the stone structure that still exists, right? And I was thinking, and the remnants of the roses too. I was thinking about, oh, right, these are like things that people planted deliberately in a certain space and now are like taking over however they want to or doing whatever they want, right? But they show the existence of a garden, or they show the existence of, and that's so interesting mixed with the sort of, I don't know how many of those, that made me think like how many of those trees are native, and just really the intersections, like you were saying, Alana, the intersection between the natural world and our human built world, and then what happens in the ruins of that, so
Yeah, thanks, Christina. For sure, it's interesting with the whole native, non-native. We're always thinking that at the parks. And with a park service, we do preserve historical landscapes. So, in the Presidio, there's a eucalyptus everywhere. It's taken over, but that's technically historical landscape. That's all, planted, historically. And, so we try to kind of have the balance between, we want to get rid of harmful invasives, but at the same time, some of these trees have historical significance, especially the rose gardens. The roses planted all over the place, and they have significance. And we do have it, they're not just growing there on their own. We do have gardeners there that are there to kind of preserve some semblance of the gardens that were there. But it's always tough kind of balancing those two things.
I'm thinking about how I'm just gonna spit it. I got a bunch of things just flying in my head. I'm gonna throw it out there like a Jackson Pollock. Here it goes. Ready? Here it comes. So I'm thinking about Tasha when she was talking about the caterpillar from Leandra's painting or the pictures, and I was thinking of, like how I wrote in the chat, just how I think this idea of paying attention to change is really important. And in my curriculum and stuff, I really want to bring that as like a focal unit to things. And then I was looking at that picture of the lions, today and then in the past. And it just, when I saw those lions, I'm like, oh, that's the lions, and then you're saying this is from the 1900s or 1800s. And I'm that whole idea of change and landscape. I think it's really important that like we expose change to students in different ways. And I'm also thinking like it's hitting me, Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, right, and like that's a whole new religion change, right? And it's something that makes me think about, I think a lot about climate change and what's coming and climate change, fire tornadoes, right? And it makes me think too, like even Leandra, the way you were talking about like the way those purple berries changed, and you had thought about what they were both now and later, and how they die, like all these examples of change, right? And there's so much you could do with students, like even thinking to ask students like what will change, what will they look at 100 years from now at us, that's going to be here, and hopefully it's a good story, right? So anyway, just this idea of change, I think it's so important, and I think like I'm seeing that thread line. I don't know.
I love that you were just talking about Octavia Butler, because I was just thinking that I finally read Parable of the Sower this summer and loved it. And I absolutely agree. Change it's the most constant thing that we have. So I think it's great. It ties to resilience, which we all know is so important from the past couple of years. So I love that theme. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, just to quickly build on Rich's thoughts, and thanks for sharing all that, Alana. I just want to give a shout out to Zoe Polk in the Bay Area, who did a lot of work with the National Park Service team to help bring light to the civil rights case and acknowledge that, the segregated past, and make sure that had some visual representation at the site. So want to, put that in there. And also looking at your photos, I was thinking back to the theme of portals, and how the change that we're talking about is also taking on a different perspective. So it's like that physicality of going through a portal, but it's also taking on a different perspective and building empathy. And that's something that's so important as we have our outdoor experiences, and just something else that we can reflect on in a way that we can connect with each other.
I just want to add to that what Dominique said earlier in her observation about the lions representing something that's exclusive. And that's also very, that's pinpoints the Harris case. Those lions represent an exclusive place when not all those spaces invited everyone. So and that's an observation, and you had that observation from your knowledge of the New York Library. And students also come with knowledge that they may know something about something, and they connect that with something too. So I really appreciated that connection. And also you mentioned unlocking. It just so happens that one of our high school program for Alcatraz is unlocking Alcatraz and kind of unlocking stories from the past.
Should I go? Should I jump in?
Go for it, Tasha.
So I really appreciate this idea of having children with journals in their hands from a young age. But as I said in the beginning, I think sometimes really working with adults is also key, because we bury stuff, we forget. So I'm thinking this is a great parent and child event where they can build almost off of each other's experience, and maybe adding one line, like if it's a strained relationship or even a happy one, you can add the time, date, place, weather, but also your mood. You got Mother Nature's mood, put your own mood and see if there's a correlation between how you're feeling and what you're observing. And does that change over time? The power of change. There's that word again, change. The power of change, though, it just seems like a beautiful way to document it and journey with your child.
Absolutely. I love the idea of putting your mood on there and really seeing like what things that you do and don't notice when you're in a good or bad mood. Or sometimes I just go to nature to cry. Like, is that a time when I should be journaling and really thinking about what I'm observing? And I definitely think that it is definitely a family-friendly event, because your adult mind might observe things differently than a child. Or what's the overlap? Like I feel like some of us never grow up.
Yeah, when I'm outside with students, I feel like, there's always like I'll go out, you can go out like 3 days in a row. And like we were just talking about how in San Francisco, the weather changes. And the thing is, that's the thing, there's always something new to see out there, and it keeps it fresh. There's always something out there that's going to surprise them, and it's as you get them to be more observant in, for example, nature journaling, they find more stuff, like they learn to really find more stuff. There's always something to find, just turn a rock over and find something. And there's always something to discover out there. So it's such a great resource,
I do love those, that intergenerational idea too. I think that's so powerful. And before we started the show, I was saying that with my niece and nephew, I actually just brought some paper and pens and crayons, actually, so we could do leaf rubbings, out to a garden that we were visiting. And it was just this really magical time. They really gravitated towards using the paper and the materials and creating and making while we were out there. So that was really magical for me. And I do feel like that we do bury things, Tasha, and it starts to, I could feel my own sense of just calm, returning after kind of crazily getting out to this garden and like all the, making sure we were not missing each other when we got there and everything. And then we just sat, and it was lovely. So maybe just some final thoughts as we start to wrap up the show. I'm so excited about my journal. So that's one of my final thoughts. And tomorrow is National Day on Writing. So or Wednesday, I'm sorry, is National Day on Writing. And if you're connecting with us via chat, it'll be Tuesday night. So the next day is National Day on Writing. And so I'm hoping to use this on that day and really sort of think about, start it then, use it as like an official start point for myself. So thank you.
Yeah, Christina, I'm thinking I'm going to do the same. I'm really inspired by the creative story from a historical place or a historical building. I'm thinking I might just find a building in Asheville and write a creative story, but then also, figure out what the history of that place was. And that'll be in addition to my nature journaling. So thank you guys. I'm so pumped about this. I'm feeling really jazzed. If it wasn't the middle of the night, I'd go outside and start nature journaling right now. Maybe I'll do my house plants.
I just have to say, like, as someone who has been a fan of both national parks and Outdoor Afro, like I have been watching, I gotta be honest, I've been watching Outdoor Afro on Facebook and forever. And it's, when you look at people through internet, it's like not the same thing as talking to someone. And I'm like, one of these days I have to talk to somebody who is like with Outdoor Afro. So I feel like I really meant it when I said like I'm with celebrities right now, and I'm truly humbled to be here. And I'm going to show my students like I took some screenshots. I'm going to say, look who I was hanging out with last night online. And Alana, like the fact that I showed them the video of you already, and it was like so well produced. I'm like, look, I was hanging out with her too. So thank you. I'm going to be the cool teacher just a little bit. I need all the help I can get. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rich. That's such a compliment. And I definitely echo what you're saying about working with Outdoor Afro. I'm really excited because I haven't yet. And this is my first time. So I'm really excited to be joining in on this. So thank you for wanting to collaborate. And and I'm really thrilled to keep on writing because I've always really enjoyed writing, but I have often felt that kind of creativity block where that I feel like I lost my creativity as a child and now I'm too scared to write a poem. I'm like, what is that about? So, I'm in it now. I'm ready to get back in it and keep on going. And I hope y'all will come along with me and do that. So yeah, thanks.
I feel the same way as you, Alana. I mean, I made my little journal. I'm ready to get going, and I'm thinking about, making journals with my students. But also, I try to carve out time to walk, to be in as much nature as I can in the city. And that's something that I've really committed myself to, just by myself or listening to like Girl Trek podcasts over the past few years. And so now I'm thinking about that walking piece, but also where do I stop? And how I can just build that into my practice just a little bit more. And there's a tree that I always take a look at when I walk to school. There's one tree that for years I peek at every day, and I notice when one leaf changes, but I've never thought about, like organizing that into my journal. And so now I think I might want to just carry this in my bag. And as I'm walking and as I'm making those observations, just like make a little note, jot it down. And I love, the last thing I say is the idea of the weather and the date and the time made so much sense to me, but I love the inclusion of my mood because, sometimes when I'm walking to work on a Monday morning or on a day when I didn't sleep very well, it feels really different. And so does that affect what's happening in the classroom? I imagine it does, but to have that piece to look at that and connect a little bit more and just, more faithfully look at that tree and observe what's happening in that space. That's just my favorite tree in the world because I feel like I know it so well. And I just appreciate getting to know a little bit more about Outdoor Afro. And just like, I'm so excited to use this tomorrow and start observing things. So thank you, everyone.
I really appreciate joining in on this. And Alana, thank you for getting me involved in this. And Leandra, thank you all. I don't do much journal writing, but I do art and I draw a lot. And I did write something. I'm just going to share with you a real quick thing from the beginning when we started. And I was looking out my window. I can see a big window here. And it says, here's what I wrote. Fall sunlight through the window, create afternoon shadows. Cool music sets the tone for communal creativity.
So good. Thank you for sharing.
Beautiful, Benny.
It's so good, yeah. Benny. That's awesome.
Thank you. I don't normally write, but you inspired me to write a quick something because it slowed me down because I started in a kind of hectic mood trying to get my camera on, and once everything cleared up, that kind of helped me settle on. Okay, you don't have a camera, that's okay. Let's just, roll with it. Thank you all.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So I don't know if y'all saw or noticed my picture when my screen is off, but it's of me looking into the face of a sunflower. And one of our essay prompts in the forest bathing program that I went through was, tell us about your first experience with nature. And when I talk about berry stuff, I hadn't had to think about that, like to write it down for a long time. Just never thought about it. But when I had to think about it, I was reminded of the sunflowers that used to both scare me and fascinate me at the same time. Because when I was 4, you could look up into them and like see this creepy thing. And it was always when it was cooler outside. So it was getting a little bit dark. And I would stare at it until I ran from it. And that was in my grandma's backyard. And that was like my first nature connection that I had to think about. But I wonder if just starting a journaling experience with that prompt to just get people to really be like, whoa. It was powerful for me, and I think that it could provide a powerful experience for other people as well to get back into nature and their connection to it. But this was awesome. It just helped me tie the bow on that experience too. So thank you.
I was going to express my gratitude too, but now I need to write that prompt down. So no, I'm kidding. I'll write it down later, but I've just been writing and taking notes, and thank you, Leandra, for inspiring me, because I feel like I've had writer's block, and I'm the type of person to say, I'm not an artist, I can't do it, but I'm pretty proud of myself. I don't know if you can see it. There's just a bunch of notes, but also little drawings. So yeah, thank you.
Yay, I see you, Maya. I see you.
That's great, Maya.
I'm getting there. It's looking real elementary, but it'll get there. But yeah, this is very inspiring, and I'm super excited, and I have all the prompts written down, and I've been wanting to attend Outdoor Afro events for a while now. So thank you, Alana, for inviting me. And thank you all. That was awesome.
So I just want to, on behalf of the National Writing Project, again, thank everyone, and special shout out to Leandra and Alana for leading us through this tonight. It was so beautiful. And I love how you shared your examples from your work and the music and sort of set up the whole situation so that we could create and share together tonight. So thank you so much. And Chaya, I just want to thank you for all your work connecting us through this event and this opportunity. And it's been really wonderful to get to know you. And as always, our national parks partners, we're always really excited to learn and work alongside you and through all these adventures of Write Out. So I hope that we can all stay together through Write Out as it continues. And thank you to my writing project colleagues too, who made the time to be here and have been working in lots of creative ways with your kids every day too in this work. So I don't know, I feel full of gratitude and just personally find this incredibly life-giving. And so hope that we can support more people and really take time to sort of step outside and do some of this work together and stay connected. So Write Out runs through Sunday. We hope to see you and do your work in your place and space, and don't think about us, and pay attention to where you are. And then when you're done and you're like, oh, I want to share it with somebody, share it online using the hashtag Write Out. Post it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you're at the Writing Project, we all have a teacher studio space that you can use too. And we're just really excited to see what you're creating and celebrate with you about your place and your Write Out experience. So thank you, everyone.
You're listening to NWP Radio, a production of the National Writing Project.
NWP. NWP Radio.